Well, I want to welcome to the Private Practice Elevation podcast, Maira Holzmann. How are you doing?
I'm great, Daniel. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you and excited to just learn a little bit more about you and your story. But before we get into that, why don't you share a little bit about just who you are and what you do and how you help therapists grow and thrive.
That sounds good. So I run a group private practice here in Denver, Colorado. It's called Somatic Therapy Partners, and we specialize in using somatic approaches to help clients heal from early trauma, regular trauma as in PTSD, shock trauma events, as
Hmm.
well as anxiety. And one of the things that I do apart from see clients and run my business is I support clinicians in having a more thriving life by doing good and living large. And one of the ways that I do that is with coaching as well as mastermind groups. So I do a number of things in my daily life and I love all of them. So I work at the intersection of being a clinician, being a private practice owner, as well as a business coach for therapists.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
and just before we hit record, you said that, and I just want to honor you for practicing what you preach. You said you're kind of pulling back a little bit on the coaching stuff right now because you've got some other priorities going on. So kudos to you for practicing what you preach and focusing on thriving. Because if you're not thriving, then it's hard to. And what I've learned is if I'm not thriving, it's hard to help other people thrive for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a tough decision and it was also one that I needed to make and also keeps me in alignment with the things that I'm trying to teach other clinicians to do,
Yeah.
first and foremost, which is to make sure that your container or that your cup is filled with joy because if we don't have that then we become shackled to our businesses and our practices in ways that we were trying not to be shackled when we were working
Yeah.
for agencies. So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah.
Cool. Well, today's topic and what we're going to talk about is, and this really grabbed my attention when you first reached out to me. Said, "Hey, here are a couple of things we can speak about." One of the titles was "How Three Failed Solo Practices Changed My Money Mindset for the Better," and not to harp on failure. I don't want to stay in that place, but like that was just so intriguing to me because there's always those challenges that we come up against when we're building a business, and to see three quote unquote failed, and I don't think failed is like, you can take that word multiple ways. I think in business, failing, as long as you're learning, you're never really failing, just to kind of
Agreed.
frame that. So but when you say like three failed attempts, that just really piqued my interest. So I just want to hear a little bit more about your story. And I think, like so many people, we learn so much from stories. So I'm excited just to hear a little bit more about that journey for you, and how that really changed you and your money mindset. So I'll just kind of hand it over to you, and yeah, take it away.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love what you said, which was as long as you're learning, you're not failing. And so, when you saw that headline of one of the things that I could talk about, I was well aware that in my own life, I don't see my three failed attempts as failures, and it was
Right.
a lot of learning. And I finally learned. So that's the good news. And I was
Yeah.
tenacious enough to just keep going. So the funny thing about my history is looking back on when I very first started opening up a practice outside of the agency that I was working for, and I laughed about this on a with a friend of mine. We called the business Chrysalis Rising. And I'm laughing because, right now the name of my business is Somatic Therapy Partners, which tells you exactly what we do. We
Mm,
focus on somatics,
yeah.
we do therapy in that way, and we try to partner with our clients. And Chrysalis Rising was my very first experience of a loss, like not a loss, but and something that I learned from in terms of it's nice to have these pretty names for your business, but not
Yeah.
if you're, in my opinion, not if you're starting out and nobody knows you and nobody knows what you're doing.
Mm,
So, yeah, I tried to open up private practice on three different occasions. Twice when I was living in California, I tried to open up a group practice with a colleague of mine, and that went south. Partly because we didn't have at that time, I didn't know anything at all about business. I knew about some things, but certainly not enough to try and make a go of it, as evidenced
Yeah.
by the fact that our business was called Chrysalis Rising. And then I opened up another practice. And a lot of what I learned, I mean, the first thing I'll say it was that it was all hustling. It was all hustling
Mm,
with one of the things that I learned is just because you have this great idea and you really want to help people doesn't mean that people are going to be knocking on your door and calling your phone in order to find you. They have to be willing to find, they have to know how to find you.
right.
And we knew nothing about SEO at the time or Google ads or any of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was really important for me to learn, and probably the biggest lesson out of all of this, was the difference between investment and cost. So one
Mm,
of the reasons why I didn't progress is because
yeah.
I was always focusing on the cost of things, the cost of coaching experiences, the cost of how much Facebook ads were going to be, the cost of this and that. And when you're trading time for money, it's easy to focus on cost because that cost is going to cost you more time on the back end. And then one of the things I did that finally launched me, and I know I went over those three failed practices, so we can slow down. And if you want to ask me anything, you can. But, where I got to was learning that when I invest in something, I get a return on my investment. And it sounds like a really basic knowing, except for
Yeah.
that I didn't have that basic financial education. I know what the word invest means. And I knew what the word cost meant, but I didn't understand how to apply it in terms of my own business. And so I was
Yeah.
not willing to spend money on someone who would build my website and SEO up my website. I wasn't willing to spend money on Facebook ads. And when I finally bit the bullet and spent, I think, $2,500, which was a lot of money for me when I bought my first coaching course, I mean, it was like all of the light bulbs went on. It was like, oh, this is
Yeah.
why this is investment. This is not a cost that's not going to get me anything in return. It's not just like I went out to dinner and I'm not going to get that money back. It's like, oh, I'm going to get 10x minimum of my money returned on how much I invested on this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the short story of my three failed attempts. And the other thing I'll say is failure for me meant that I wasn't charging what I wanted to charge. I was still taking insurance and getting paid really poorly. I was taking any client that would show up at my door. And my practice never got full. At that time, I wanted to be seeing 20 to 25 clients a week. And I was lucky if I got to maybe 10 or 12. And that's with every single attempt. Like every one of those attempts, it was just this kind of bleak landscape of like, why
Yeah.
is nobody calling me? I'm such a do-gooder. I want to really help the world, and nobody could find me. And then if they could find me, I didn't know how to clinch the deal, so to speak, or sell my skills well enough so that they would quickly want to say, yeah, you're the person I want to work with because you know how
Yeah.
to do exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, there's so much to unpack there.
I know. Where do you want to start? But that's the sort of overview of my
Yeah.
three
Yeah.
learning attempts at trying to open
Yeah.
up private practice.
No, that's great. I love what you said about investment versus cost, and so maybe we can kind of unpack that just a little bit more, because I know that that's something that I myself have struggled with in business, and like learning that difference. I started out in 2016, so I've been started out just in a similar journey as maybe like a solo therapist might have. It's just you. It's all you. It's all on you. You're trying to you're figuring out what needs to happen, how to do business, how to reach clients. It's like there's the marketing, there's the financial, there's all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about, maybe some of the first things that you invested in, and maybe when you were starting to learn how to kind of flex that muscle, so to speak, of seeing something as an investment versus this is just a cost, which to me kind of sounds like almost like you're reframing the money that you're spending into like, this money is really going to do good in my business rather than this money is just going out from my business.
Yeah, this is a great question. My seminal moment when I figured out the difference between investment and cost is when I was working with that first coach. And at the time, I was like, I got to do something different. And I just basically threw my money at the first person that showed up in my Facebook feed and was running an ad for helping therapists
Yeah.
build their private practice. And one of the first things that he did is he broke down a bunch of money things. He said, you know, like you have to know how much you need per month. And he broke down the whole calculator of how much I needed to charge or how much I wanted to charge in order to make a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
And again, I will be really transparent. And I'm wondering how many of your listeners experience this, but I really don't know anything about money. At that time, I really just, I mean, I could do a basic budget, but I did not understand a lot about how things worked. And so he started talking to me about using Google Ads, which is one of the ways that I filled my practice actually very quickly. And he said, okay, Myra, the budget that he told me that I should spend was $500 a month. And at the time, I mean, I almost got sick and threw up. I just thought that that was the most amount of money. And my immediate thought was like, this is a waste and I don't know if it's going to work, which frankly
Yeah.
is true about a lot of marketing. I mean, you can
Yeah.
invest in a lot of marketing when we just don't kind of know what's going to stick, especially with different market trends.
Yeah.
And so he did a really simple exercise with me and he said, okay, Myra, let's do a little math. If you spend $500 in 1 month and all you get out of it is one client, and you charge, at that time I charged 175 an hour. If that client stays with you for 4 sessions, a minimum of 4 sessions, and I do in-depth works, meaning that my clients tend to stay with me for a minimum of 6 months to a year or longer, because often I'm working with clients who have
Yeah.
early trauma. So they're with me for a long
Wow.
time. He said, okay, so in 1 month, if they come back and see you, you're going to get $750 back. Now you will only have made $250 minus the cost of your investment. And if that client keeps coming to see you because you're doing clinically excellent work, then you have returned the money on your investment by however long it is that that client ends up staying with you. And it was like this simple aha, like break myself out of the bubble of my denial and my belief systems about
Yeah.
throwing money away. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh. And then I started doing it. And then I started using Google Ads and I Google Ads, and you know, I changed, like I found I found a niche, and I changed my website copy, and I did all of these things in this concerted way to make sure that I was speaking to my ideal clients. And when I started seeing the clients coming in and the money also rolling in, I was like, oh, investment. Oh,
Yeah.
I just invested $500 and it gave me 10, 20, 30 times that in one
Yeah.
client.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the moment.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
you can, and also then you kind of, one thing I like about that and sort of like going through those sort of exercises of, you know, return on investment and that sort of stuff, it kind of gets you dreaming about the possibilities. And it's like in that exercise, you just said one client, you know, but imagine if that was two, three, you know, and then imagine that one client that you got tells three more people because you are doing excellent clinical work, you know, and then it just,
Yes,
this multiplication effect kind of starts happening when you start to think about return on investment.
that's right.
And so it's, that stuff is kind of fun to me because like it's kind of part dreaming and part geeky, like numbers and stuff, because like it's, oh, I can actually multiply, you know, do the math and see, you know, what could happen here if I just run these ads.
Yeah, the thing I just got from you that is like this simple phrase in my head. It's, you know, you said something like, well, investment gets you I heard it as investment gets you possibility. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna lay down $1,000, $10,000, or whatever it is, and whatever it is that I'm trying to invest in my business, because it's gonna open up more possibilities for me.
Yeah.
And for me, one of the things that was on my things that I could talk about is the advice that no one ever gave me in my field, which is to dream bigger. But when I
Mm.
started investing in my business and Google Ads and coaching and all of that kind of thing, it's like what I was really investing in was the world of possibility available to me to operate in my career and reach people in a number of different ways versus just the
Yeah.
traditional one-to-one way, which is why I'm here podcasting with you, right? Is because
Yeah.
all of a sudden, as my revenue increased and I was following all of the advice that I was getting from all of the business coaches and coaching programs and mastermind that I invested in, it opened up a world of possibility. And to
Yeah.
me, that's really exciting. I love clinical
Yeah.
work, and I'm also the kind of person that's wired to want to explore a lot of different other things.
Yeah.
So that was a wonderful thing to say, because that's what investment really does get you, is more possibility.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's not it's hard to tangibly validate that. Not sure exactly how I want to say that, but you know, it's not like if I invest in this thing, sometimes it's not like you invest in this thing and you get back the client. Sometimes it's you invest in this thing, such as coaching or mastermind, and you get back confidence. You know, you get back peace of mind. You get back just support, people that you can say, hey, I'm struggling with what to do in this situation. What do you think is the best thing? Go this way or that way with my marketing, that sort of thing. So sometimes
Yeah.
it's not totally tangible, but it by, if you've done it, if you've gone through it, you kind of have those sorts of, those feelings.
Yeah, well, I love the way that you're saying it. And I also, because I'm somatically oriented, meaning that I use the body as an ally in the healing process, to
Right.
me, it's a really tangible get. It's like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
feel a sense of support. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
my creative mind just opened up and I thought about this whole new way of looking at doing therapy and the ways that, you know what I mean? Like those tangible experiences of feeling good in the body or feeling at
Yeah.
ease or feeling confident when your chest kind of puffs up and you can lift your chin a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I think are other ways that investing in coaching programs and all the kinds of things that you can do to support your business, that's to me, that's the real juice of it, is the connections that I've made and the experience of
Yeah.
possibility and creativity. And what that really leads to for me is flow, right?
Mm,
My acronym for flow is feeling love over worry. And when I've got a
that's great.
coach in my back pocket that's like, yep, I've got you and we're going to figure this out together,
Yeah.
boy, that flow just happens. I'm just in my life, I'm doing my business, and it
Yeah.
feels super good.
Yeah, and that's where you find your creative space. I've kind of learned early on in my business, in those seasons where I was maybe focusing on the worry and the negative, or that sort of thing, found myself just so uncreative. Like you can't solve problems creatively if you're in that space of just worry and fear and
That's right.
doubt and that sort of thing. And that's just one thing that mastermind groups, coaching can help to alleviate that quickly, when you're leaning on someone else and someone else's strength and expertise.
That's right. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, so let's just kind of, oh, there's so many ways, so many places we can go,
I know there's so
from
many things to
here.
talk about.
Yeah, I guess let's continue like on this, this topic of just investment, and on that topic of worry too. Kind of, what are some of the things that people should think about when maybe they're back kind of where you started, where they haven't invested yet? They've heard some people do Google Ads or some people do coaching. What would you say to somebody who's sort of on the fence? And just kind of like, it is a stretch for me to pay $500 a month. Like, how would you help people to kind of think through that, and challenge them to maybe take that leap?
Yeah. So I learned this phrase a while ago during one of my coaching programs, actually, my podcasting coaching program. And someone was on this call and she talked about this idea of new level, new devil. And what she meant by that is that, at least the way that I interpret it, is that for every level of success or every level of personal growth that you get to, and so for the therapists that are listening, you know what resistance is. But especially in business, for every new level that you want to get to, you're going to be confronting a new devil, or a whole new set of circumstances that you
Yeah.
need to deal with. And one of the things I would tell people if they're on the fence is, first of all, know that resistance is a force of nature in and of itself. And whatever your fears are, it's because your brain is telling you stay in the same place, be comfortable, right?
Yeah.
Clinicians know this, but I'm saying this in the context of business because for me, once I understood that this is the way that it is in order to keep growing, because I've watched it as my business went, as I went from doing agency work to doing solo practice, and then from solo practice to running a group practice, and watching each level of success. And oftentimes right now that success is based on like how much revenue that I'm bringing in. But for one is to confront the resistance as what it is, which is, okay, my brain doesn't like this newness, and
Yeah.
how can you help overcome it so that you can figure out what's on the other side? And
Hmm.
then the second piece of advice I would say is do it. Like take the leap. Like
Just do
once
it.
you invest one time in a course, and I mean, unless you have someone in your pocket that's like your best friend that can coach you, or you've got someone that can do SEO for you, like great, bootstrap it if you want to. But that's the thing that I learned, is that my skill set is in being a therapist, not in SEO, not in marketing, not
Hmm.
necessarily in running my business. But
Yeah.
once you take the leap and you experience the benefits of it and the possibilities and the level of success that no doubt will come for you, you will want to keep doing it again and again and again. So I'll just give you an
Yeah.
example. That first year when I finally became successful in my practice, I Oh, I forgot where I was going with this. That's funny. I kind of brain farted.
It's all good.
So I'll pause here and bring it back to you in case. But
Happens
I
all
was
the
just,
time.
yeah, I was just going to say invest in the program because it's really, oh, yeah, this is what I was going to say. So that first year, I spent $2,500 on my practice. In the last probably year or two, I invest anywhere from like $10,000 to $20,000 per year of my income in business related
Yeah.
masterminds and coaching because and I don't know how much longer I want to do that because the truth is I don't know if I want to keep growing. I'd like to study the ship out.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm always going to get my return on investment because I also know myself as a student. And when I sign up for something, I'm all in. I am in
Yeah.
beginner's mind. I do what the coach tells me. I follow all of the steps. I participate in all of the things. And then I see my levels of success change. So
Yeah.
that would be the advice I would give to people who are listening who haven't taken the leap. Know that you're going to come up against resistance and then take the leap anyway.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
would say.
Just do it scared.
Yeah.
Just do it
Do it
scared.
scared and then get all the support around you that you can because the
Yeah.
entrepreneurial path is a big roller coastery one. And
Yeah.
no one tells you that, especially therapists. I don't think they quite tell you that.
Yeah.
But it's really true.
Yeah. And I like what you said too about no, I'm having a brain fart. What was it? You were talking about how it just totally flew out of my
It just
brain.
totally flew out of your brain. It
What
might
is
come
going
back.
on? What is
Yeah, it
going
might
on
come
this
back.
morning? Oh no, now I know. Okay.
Okay.
So you were talking about how you're all in, when you sign up for like a coaching or a course or that sort of thing, you're all in. And I
Yeah.
think that kind of bring this background, talking about your mindset and seeing things at as investments. I think that's a huge part of it too, is to stay teachable, to be continue to learn. And I think that's just kind of a great quality that it sounds like you possess. Because sometimes I know that we could go into things where you're like, oh, this might work, it might not work, and you kind of, you know vacillating the whole time, instead of like, I'm going to be all in, I'm going to do what these coaches say, and I'm going to trust them. Like, I'm just going to trust this process. And if at the end of it doesn't work, at least I know I gave it like my all. But I know that there's been times, to be honest, where I've joined things and done like courses, and they're like, oh yeah, maybe this will work, I'll just see what I'll get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But that, looking back now, kind of regret that.
Yeah.
It would have been much better to go in and carve out more time in my day as an investment of time. There's an investment of money, and just say, like, I'm going to apply this 110% to my business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's such an important thing to go in with that beginner's mind because, I mean, as therapists, we also know this. It's like if your client is oriented towards looking for the negative and you can't support them and looking for like just have a different view of like, okay, it was a really crappy day all day, but I had this one moment where the sun shining was beautiful and it felt good on my face. If we're
Yeah.
not teaching our clients to do that, we can't teach ourselves to like be all in and look for the good. Right. So, great example. I told you before we even started podcasting that I needed to take a pause on the launch course that I spent a lot of money on. And it was because I realized that I was just overextended.
Yeah.
Now, my initial reaction to that was like, wow, Maira, you just wasted a bunch of money. You did, this might be, I could have easily seen this as a failure.
Hmm.
And what's also true is I learned so much from that program. Like I haven't launched yet. I still plan to launch that, my More Thriving Therapist coaching course. And I'm walking away knowing how much I know in terms of how I can support clinicians and having a thriving practice. And I know because I've already done it.
Yeah.
Right. And that beginner's mindset, I think, is really important. It's like invest fully and trust that you will be successful. And I think that that's one of the pro tips I would just put out there is whatever you're investing in, trust that you
Yeah.
made a good decision on that investment and that you are going to get a return on that investment as long as you keep showing up and doing the work. It's
Yeah.
as simple as that, but not as
Hmm.
easy as that.
Yeah, that totally resonates with me, because I kind of find myself in a similar place in my business. So when I first began doing what I'm doing, it started as a website called Create My Therapist Website, and it was very like, I'm going to teach you how to create a WordPress website, and here's the tutorials and the tips, and it was mostly a blog,
Yeah.
and so I've created a number of online courses, and I'm
Nice.
just made the decision, and I've fluctuated on this for a year, but I made the decision to really start to pull back those courses, because my business has changed. Like those courses
Yes,
served me at that moment and that time in the business. But now, when people are signing up for these courses, I realize I can't support them in the same way that I used to. And that's not fair to them.
that's
So
right.
we're starting to pull that stuff back and starting to close down some of those courses. And there's other courses that I continue to launch as part of private practice elevation and what we do now. But it's
Yeah.
because I've kind of walked through the learning stages of building those other courses and realizing maybe where those courses either succeeded or didn't succeed, and now I get to apply that to the new stuff that I'm excited about doing. So
That's
so
right.
I think it's just like you said, it's like we go through these our businesses, we'll go through phases, we'll kind of realize what we need to continue to thrive, because at the end of the day, if we're not thriving, if we're not excited about our business, then that is a probably not the best impact to the clients that we're trying to serve, right?
Yeah, I mean, it becomes a real problem. And I think this is why, I was really, and I'm still really excited about launching a coaching course and supporting therapists, is because when we thrive, our clients do better. Like
Yeah.
hands, there's no doubt about it, because somatic resonance is this term where we can feel people when we're with them, not just because of what
Hmm.
we're observing, but we can feel what they might be going through.
Yeah.
And clinicians are oftentimes really stuck in this experience of being overworked and underpaid, and that somatic resonance from that clinician who is overworked and underpaid is going to translate directly into the work that you do with
Yeah.
clients. I'm not saying they're going to do bad work. I'm saying that clinicians are going to be tired. They're going to
Yeah.
be burnt out, and over time that burnout leads to resentment and dread of your clients.
Yeah.
So thriving more is absolutely the jam when it comes to this work. I think it's the
Yeah.
most important thing, especially given what we know about, the
Yeah.
mental health field and everything that happened during COVID. Like, we are really
Yeah.
needed on this planet. So
Yeah.
we've got to be really resourced when we're seeing our clients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an awesome conversation. I know it's got my mind kind of like spinning a little bit and just kind of excited to kind of get back into. I'm like sitting here like I need to get back into another mastermind group. I was part of one for over a year, and that kind of ended maybe a few months back. So I need to be on top of this. Like I need to continue to grow and get that support. So thank you
Yeah.
for inspiring me. I'm sure that others listening to this are inspired. But tell us a little bit more about where people can find you
Yeah.
and learn a little bit more, maybe even get on your email list for the future when you do launch that coaching stuff. So just let us know where we can find you.
Yeah, you can find me mainly at somatictherapypartners.com, which is my group practice website. And on that website, there will be a tab that we're going to build for professionals for somatic mentoring for clinicians that are interested in incorporating somatics, as well as coaching and other
Great.
things for clinicians.
Okay, great. All right.
Yeah.
We'll put that in the show notes for this episode so people can go check that out and see everything that you're doing. But thank you so much for your time. It's been a fun conversation.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Daniel.